vax, then we're just done. I don't know. I screwed it all up. Camera's been working fine. Everything looks great. Looks good on my end, especially on Riverside, which is what we record on. And then I go over to YouTube and it looks like crap. So we'll see. I'm pulling up the feed right now to see how I look. Ah, way better. Okay. Is it looking better to everybody now? I sure hope so. Thank goodness. Thank goodness it's better. What a pain in the butt. I hate it's crisper. Thanks. I appreciate that. Oh, good. Oh, thank goodness. Guys, we're back. Okay, to Super's question about marrying a stripper. Listen, guys, I'm probably not the one. I do have a divorce behind me, right? She was not a stripper. She was an awesome person. I was a terrible person. That is the state that I will maintain. Listen, these relationships that you make in the military, they all tend to be really quick, right? Like the joke about marrying somebody in the military is, you go from basically like, what does any military dude bring on his second date? He brings all of his stuff because they're moving in together. I don't know why it is, but especially in the younger branches or in the younger, sort of like E5 and below range, this stuff happens. I don't know why it's always the Army. Marines typically don't. Marines, like they go out and they have a fun time, but they're going to go buy a Charger at 28%, not necessarily commit to a lifetime of some girl that goes by the stage name Mercedes. You know what I mean? So that's just a thing that they do that doesn't really happen anywhere else. Folks, you got to be careful about who you're marrying. Like BBC, these ladies be crazy. I got to tell you, you got to be careful who you're marrying. So it sucks to hear that Green Beret guy 100% got absolutely murdered by his wife. Super. That's a terrible story. I can't believe it. There we go. So what else we got? Gabe, don't worry. I've met guys who can program an MPU-5 but can't work Zoom. Standard boomer behavior, really. You would think that after COVID, we would have every single thing locked down, right? You think you'd be able to know exactly what it is that you're doing all the time, because all we did for 4 years was talk on cameras to one another. What a crazy time COVID was. There's a lot of stuff coming out about COVID and vaccines. I just watched, it's Jubilee does the little debate thing where it's like a whole bunch of people debate one person. They all put up their little flags. This doctor got on there and was talking nonsense about the vaccine. The clip that I saw just before I came on here, he was talking about how there was a choice and everything. And the guy was asking, he's like, well, I got kicked out of the military for not taking the vaccine. I didn't really feel like a choice. It's like, well, no, you had a choice. It's just you chose to get out of the military. Absolutely disgusting. I want to give a shout out to COVID, though, for being the biggest red pill that we've ever had in the history of America. COVID broke people in both a good and a bad way. There's an entire generation of kids now that were taken out of schools and that saw the nonsense that the parents were doing and that saw a Hegelian dialectic in real time. A Hegelian dialectic, by the way, is that if the government can take away your rights during an emergency, they will create emergencies in order to further take away your rights. That's exactly what happened inside of COVID, but it woke a lot of people up. There's a lot of people with a healthy distrust and a healthy skepticism of the government, the deep state, the bureaucratic cabal that runs our entire country now. And people don't take things at face value and they do their own research. It's fantastic. So let's go. Here we go. Scary situation. Matthew Johnson was another one. He disappeared 9/2024. His estranged wife, Jennifer Gledhill, was arrested days after. As far as I know, they still haven't found his body yet. You got to be careful. You got to be careful. Let's go. Matthew, have you heard anything about Alone at Dawn being made into a movie? I certainly have. So Alone at Dawn, great book. I got it right here. Dan Schilling, we've had him on the podcast as well. So Dan is an awesome guy. Dan wrote this with Lori Chapman Longfritz. There's a whole kerfluffle going on right now. If you guys haven't been tracking, go over and check out Valhalla VFT. Nate just sat down with Lori Chapman Longfritz not too long ago and talked about the Medal of Honor situation going on. I will tell you right now, I can't tell you the inside information that is going on right now. It's going to come out and it's going to blow your mind. It's going to absolutely blow your mind. The things that we find out about this Medal of Honor from Solinsky, what the SEALs did, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So you guys need to keep your eyes peeled for that, of course. We are going to be the guys that break that wide open. We have a big network of folks. We're constantly getting DMs about stuff. We've positioned ourselves now to be the people that can get information out into the sunlight, and we're happy to do so. Nate does great work over there. Make sure to check out Valhalla VFT. Make sure to subscribe to his channel. Make sure to watch his videos. We're all on there. You can find Jay. You can find Jake. I think we were even shaming Ben last Friday I think he's the only one that hasn't gone on Nate's show yet. So we were shaming Ben pretty good. Ben, right now, we don't know where he's been. But I can also tell you that J-Lo hasn't been in the news. So you do whatever you want with that information. From M. Corbin, Fauci came off like a mobster. Well, I mean, that's one way to classify it, I suppose. Fauci is a terrible human being. He was also in charge. His last big thing, if you want to read a great book, it's called The Truth About Fauci. It is absolutely damning for his work in the AIDS epidemic and all of the other stuff that he's talked about there. So go check that book out. Anthony Fauci deserves jail time and nothing less. That pardon is nonsense. He should not get a blanket pardon for anything because it leads you to ask, what do you need a pardon for, Anthony? From Eldon. What was the hardest part about the PJ pipeline? I did 4 years in the Marines, wanted to try out for special operations, but I didn't have the right mindset at the time. Now I'm too old. That sucks. Sorry, bro. So the hardest part about the PJ pipeline for me, it was just the grind, right? The pipelines, all of these pipelines, all of them. What's up, guys? Giovanni, go. What up? Operator, what's going on? Hey, guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button. Glad to see you here. So the hardest part for me, it was just the grind, right? People focus on assessment and selection. Back when I went through, when it was hard, it was called INDOC, the indoctrination course, and it changed a little bit over time. It's called Special Warfare Assessment and Selection. Now it's a 7-week course through assessment and selection, and then you get assessed, and if you get selected, you go directly to pre-dive. The hardest part for me during that 10-week course, that was the indoctrination course, it was just the grind of every day. You knew that you were getting up every single morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. You knew the day that you had ahead of you. You knew what you were going to be grinded and asked to do. You knew you were tired. You knew you were sore. You never had enough sleep, food, water, nothing. You could never really recover from all the day's events. Some days, and they build this into the program specifically, some days are harder than others, but your team can make days harder than others as well. That's not just in the beginning part, though. It's the entire pipeline. So the entire pipeline is an evaluated event. So all these schools sound fun, right? Like airborne school sounds fun. Yeah, I hate 4 a.m. Corbin, I actually get up every day at 4 still to go work out. That's for a different reason. It's because I have a young son. I've got a 1-year-old and my wife, and I don't want to take 2 hours out of their waking day for me to go to the gym. However, my physical fitness is extremely important to me, so I have to prioritize it. So I still get up at 4 a.m. and it still sucks. I still hate it. I just don't post a picture like Jocko does every day to show you that I got up at 4 a.m. Just assume that I did. But the hardest part of the PJ pipeline, all these schools, jump school, SEER school, free fall, all of these other schools, those are all evaluated. You have to pass those. It's not like you just go and you show up and you're like, oh, it's a gentleman's course, we're just going to do this thing. No, there's evaluations every single day. And then you get to the paramedic portion of it. So all pararescuemen are nationally registered paramedics. We do that paramedic course like civilians go through a paramedic course. And if they devote their entire life to school, only going to paramedic school, right? And they can do it all at once. Programs across the nation run anywhere from 12 to 18 months. That's how fast you can become. If you pass everything, you don't fail, and you don't fail your test at the end, because the test at the end is no joke either. If you pass all those things, you can get through that in the civilian world, focusing only on that in something like, I don't know, like 12 to 18 months. We do it in 7. So, and that includes your clinicals. That includes 6 weeks of going, like I went to Philadelphia. People go everywhere across the country, from San Antonio to New Mexico to Baltimore, Birmingham, Alabama. We go everywhere for ride-alongs, right? So we look for the high crime, high trauma areas so that we get the most trauma that we possibly can, because that's what pararescuemen focus on, is trauma medicine as opposed to clinical medicine. But you're evaluated every single day. It just never stops. The PJ pipeline is just, it's one test to the next test. And speaking about paramedics specifically, I remember I was coming up for my test for promotion. Like I was an E5 getting ready to be an E6. In the Air Force, you have to test for all those things. There were 2 tests you had to take. One was a job test. One was an Air Force test. They were 100 questions each. That's how you promote. It's just a weird thing. Like they kind of like look at your fitness stuff really, but really at those levels, it's just straight up taking a test. So I remember I looked at my ex at the time, and I looked at her and I was like, hey, here's the deal. I got a test on Monday. I got a test on Friday, and I've got this Air Force promotion test on Wednesday. If I study, I could maybe make it, but there's no guarantee. But I can tell you that I might not make the medical test unless I like really study and I don't focus on anything else. It's one of those things that you have to look at. And I had to make the decision. I was like, I'm just going to go take that test. And I obviously did not get promoted. I did not study at all for that test because I was in the middle of paramedic. So to answer your question directly, the hardest part was just that grind. It was waking up every single day for 2.5 years, 2 years for me, waking up every single day, knowing that I was going to be evaluated, knowing that if I didn't do well, they'd just kick me out. They would just straight up take me out of the course and it would no longer be, I wouldn't be a PJ. And that was tough. The grind is absolutely crazy. So there you go. Can you recite the Pararescueman's Creed from memory? It is my duty as a pararescueman to save life and aid the injured. I will be prepared at all times to perform my assigned duties quickly and efficiently, placing these duties before my personal desires and comforts. These things I do that others may live. What are you talking about? You know how many times I've said that in my life? You would have to say that when you were treading. You would have to say that when you were running. You would have to say that when you were absolutely smoked. You said it when you got, so we have ins and outs, right? When you get to the schoolhouse, you're in formation, you run to the schoolhouse, you show up in front of your designated spot at the pararescue schoolhouse where I was an instructor. There's a huge thing that looks like a tombstone and it's got the creed on it. And you read the entire creed out, right? The motto is that others may live. The creed is the one that I just recited for you. We had to do that all the time. Like that's how we knew that the students were here, is if you got in front of the schoolhouse, that team had better be screaming that motto and that creed, and I better be able to hear you. And then, so basically you did ins and outs. And then after you did your you recited the creed, you would go do ins for the day. And depending on what day it is, it was either pull-ups, push-ups, or dips, or pull-ups or dips. I think those are the two, because we had dip bars and pull-up bars. So you would either do pull-ups or dips for your ins. But every time you left the building, like if you were going to go to lunch, you would have to do your set of pull-ups, then say the creed, then go to lunch, then come back and say the creed, and then do your ins, do your pull-ups again, and then go back in. So if you had to like leave the building like 5 times in a day, you were doing like 140 pull-ups because it was one in and one out. And if you had to make 4 or 5 trips, like you were quickly getting, like you would literally be sitting there at lunch and be like, okay, listen, I'm hungry and I kind of want to eat this Subway sandwich, and the Subway's across base. I've got plenty of time to make it. Like we have enough of a lunch break. I just don't want to do 20. And by the way, it's not just 10 pull-ups. You do 10 pull-ups plus 3, because you do 3 for teamwork, pararescue, and your fallen comrades. So it's actually 13 pull-ups every time you leave. So you'd literally be doing the math. You'd be like, ugh, is this sandwich worth 26 pull-ups to me? And sometimes it wouldn't be. Can I recite the Pararescue Creed? You better get out of here, homie. Much respect, Stephen. Much respect, PJ. Veteran 2504, 82nd Airborne Division, 11 Bravo. Stephen, man, thank you so much for your service. You were the last of a dying generation, the Vietnam guys. Man, I love you guys. You guys are crazy. Man, much respect. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you. Thank you for your service. That's no joke. You did some crazy stuff. Vietnam was a crazy time, and not a lot of dudes talk about it. I'm glad to see that you're still around. Eldon, geez, here I thought getting through EMT basic was difficult. Yeah, well, it is difficult. And by the way, we do EMT basic in like 4 training weeks. Like you're taking your EMT basic test in the pararescue pipeline like 4 training weeks after you start. It's absolutely crazy. So it's tough. It's very, very fast. So Supra, oh no, Casablanca, they brainwashed you in times of struggle. That is genius. Yeah. It's called operant conditioning, my dude. And it's just blunt force repetition. The more that you would say it, and it's funny because you have to study it at first, right? And it's classic learning behavior. You're sitting in your dorm room as you're at your selection course. And by the way, the Ranger Creed is the same way. The Green Beret Creed, same way. Like everybody has these things that are wrapped up. The Navy SEAL ethos. These things are wrapped up and those guys can do it. But it's so ingrained to me now that at any time I can rip that bad boy off, because it just is. I think I still remember the mission statement. The mission statement of a pararescueman is like AETC speak, but it's everything that you're supposed to do. I'd have to think my way through it. The mission of a pararescueman is to save life and aid the injured. That's messing it up with the creed. Anyway, I'd have to figure that one out. We used to have to know the mission statement as well. So you talk about how pararescuemen act as gunners and scanners on fixed and rotary wing aircraft and support NASA manned spaceflight missions. So yeah, Good one. Let's see. That's too little time to soak in all that knowledge. Much respect. No, it works. I'm telling you, you just got to prioritize it. Like, man, the only thing that you're doing is you're just learning stuff every single day. You just got to take in information. You have to get information in. You have to be a good adult learner. Your study habits have to be on point. You have to be doing extra work at home. All I was doing is I would go work out in the morning. Then I would go to school. So I would go to school. I'd work out at lunch. I'd get my workout done at lunch. I'd get home. And then I had 2 little kids at the time. I went through the pipeline with like 2 kids under 2. So it was like 2. And, my son was a couple months old, like literally 2 months old when we showed up at Kirtland so that I could start my training. So that entire pipeline portion at Kirtland, like I had 2 kids under 2 years of age. My daughter was 3 by the time we left. We left Kirtland and went to England. But I mean, it was like get home, have a little time with the kids, and then you're cracking those books and you're reading it again. So it's the only way to get through it. So for Matthew, what part does shoot, move, communicate play in PJ training? Those are basic food groups, dude. PJs do shoot, move, communicate, medicate, technical rescue, and everybody leads, right? Lead is an implied task there. All SOF operators shoot, move, and communicate as a baseline. Basic tactics are the baseline for everything. We're still a combatant, so you have to do shoot, move, and communicate, right? So for us, shoot, move, communicate, medicate, so trauma medicine, and technical rescue. Those are our specific skill sets and capabilities that we bring to the fight for any team. And that's either Air Force teams or if we're supporting other teams out there. Those are the things that we bring to the fight. People often ask like, oh, well, you're a medic. What do you do when you support a team that already has a medic? Like the classic PJ response here is, well, I'm not a medic, because we're not. We're medically trained. We have that capability. That's something that we bring to the fight, but I'm not going to sit there and just wait for stuff to happen and then put Band-Aids on people. That's not what we're there to do. We have a full suite to include being a special operator. Some of the tactics training that we get is the best in the world. The tactics training that we have down at the Pararescue Schoolhouse is amazing, all the way through CQC. We have an entire simunition shoot house built underneath one of our climbing towers that is 360-degree lights and cameras. You can pull video, you can watch people, slow it down in real time. They've got big touch screens that you can show people what they're doing and draw on them and be like, hey, here's where you didn't clear your corner, and here's where this guy was, and here's your shot when you broke it, here's your teammate. You can give people that video to be like, I told you. We used to do it all the time. So yeah, the tactical training that you get is like no other, and it never stops. Like you're going to advanced shooting schools all the time. Shout out to Shaw Shooting, both Mid-South and Shaw Shooting. Awesome dudes, great guy. Combat Controller is actually one of the head dudes out there running it now. Coop, awesome dude, awesome training. But we go out to Hat Creek with Brian Morgan and do long distance shooting, a lot of sniper stuff, a lot of tripod work, a lot of long distance shooting. We do all kinds of stuff from pistol to rifle to specialized weapons. Some guys get to go to breacher courses. There's a ton of that tactical training that's involved in being a PJ as well. So from Gabe, military education is rapid. The Arabic course at DLI is 16 months, and it takes you from knowing nothing to basically fluent. That is fact check true. That DLI course is no joke. My nephew, young man, Ryan, he got in. He's actually a third generation military member. So my younger brother, Danny, he's a pilot in the Army. So he was a 60 pilot. I actually have 3 little brothers in the Army. Fun fact about me. So Danny had a son. Ryan is the son's name. Ryan went to DLI for Mandarin. And for 16 months, that's all he did. And he came out speaking extremely well Mandarin. Like, it was crazy. Like, I would just be like, can you converse in Mandarin? And he'd be like, yeah, no kidding. Like, we went to it. It's going to sound racist, but it's really not. We went to a Chinese restaurant and Ryan ordered in Chinese, and he blew everybody's mind. It was one of those internet videos that people were just laughing at and like crazy. But yeah, DLI is no joke. Military training is extremely, extremely quick. You're right. The military educational training. Matthew, got another one. How do PJs and CROs compare? Well, PJs are obviously better because we're enlisted. They're 2 separate jobs, right? So it's not like having a SEAL officer. That's not what a CRO is. A combat rescue officer is a complete separate job. They've got separate training, separate requirements, and separate capabilities. CROs are the leaders of small teams that work with personnel recovery as the larger umbrella under which we all work, right? Pararescuemen and combat rescue officers organize in teams, sometimes with support individuals like JTACs, either TACPs or combat controllers. Sometimes we have additional personnel like EOD. There's a bunch of people that support us, from AFE to SEER to radio to IT to personnel to whatever. but we task organize in those teams to complete the personnel recovery mission. CROs and PJs are a different job. CROs actually have a whole bunch of cool stuff. We're about to drop a huge episode over on One's Ready. I'm not going to tease it too much, but there's going to be a lot of information that comes out about Operation Red Wings that you've never heard before, because we had the guy that actually ran the integration. That was no kidding in the talk, looked at the screen and goes, hey, I think we have an isolated person here. And that turned out to be Marcus Luttrell. So that guy, the guy, he wrote the report, the guy that Marcus Luttrell gave the report to, that no kidding gave the very first account of what happened on that mountain, went to our guest. And that's going to drop very soon. And that's going to blow some people's minds. Some people are going to be very, very upset about that episode. I have a feeling. So, but CROs have a lot of stuff that they do. So they're actually the officers for the SEER career field as well. So CROs actually oversee everybody in SEER. There's CROs that are the officer component for SEER. SEER does not have officers. So survival, evasion, resistance, and escape folks in the Air Force don't have CROs. However, or they don't have officers, excuse me. So CROs fill that billet. So to answer your question, they compare in the same way that Rangers do with Green Berets, or in the same way that PJs do with Navy SEALs, right? They have a lot of the same capabilities like shoot, move, communicate, and lead, but they have a different job. They're doing a completely different job and a completely different skill set. So when you see CRO, don't think about, oh, it's being a PJ officer. It's not. When you're a pararescueman, you actually have to, if you decide to be a CRO, if you decide to commission, unlike combat control, the other Air Force specialty, combat control actually has to go through, they don't have to go through like another course. They just, the CFETB, their training is exactly the same, right? So they actually just put on a little officer insignia and poof, they're an officer after a short selection process. If you're a pararescueman and you want to be a CRO, you actually have to go back through a whole different course. You have to go through a whole different CRO course, right? So when you qualify out, it's like Army's Q course, right? So we have our version of the Q course is the PJ CRO apprentice course, the Pararescue and Combat Rescue Officer apprentice course. Those are actually two separate courses. Some of the blocks are the same, like the CROs go to tactics, they go to air ops, they go to the final evaluation phase, they go through the mountain phase, but they have like 4 or 5 other blocks that they're completely off doing their own thing in their own course, and they're run separately. They have their own instructors. It's their own course, right? So when you think about it, it's not same, but different. It's just different. Why would the government lie about something? What a great question, M. Corbin. Why would they lie about something? It seems these days that they're just absolutely lying about everything. If you guys saw the breaking news from today, my favorite one is that the Democrats have honed in on this Maryland gentleman that President Trump has decided to deport through the Department of Justice. He is currently trying to dismantle MS-13, which is a ridiculously violent gang here in America. Fun story about MS-13. They have a huge presence in Washington, D.C. I actually lived in Washington, D.C. For like 5 years before I cross-trained. And there was an area, Southeast DC, before they gentrified it, before they put there's a new MGM that's there. They put the new baseball park that's there. Like that was all very, very, recent as far as history goes. But back in like 2005, that area of DC, it was very common. Like the rule for locals is like, you don't stop at stop signs and you don't get out of your car. Like if you were in Southeast DC, and that was because of MS-13. So in Maryland, an MS-13 gang leader, gang member, violent criminal was deported. And now everybody is talking about how we deported this American citizen without due process and blah, 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 blah. What they failed to mention is that this guy was 100% a shot caller for MS-13 and had been running that area for like a decade. We knew that he was here. We knew that he was violent. We knew that he had violated the laws to come into America illegally. That's USC 8-1324 for avoiding customs and border protection agencies. Hilarious to watch them just lie to your face and gaslight to say, oh, well, President Trump is taking everybody out and he's not letting people live here. It's absolutely ridiculous. The most ridiculous thing of all time. Why would they lie? That's a great question. Matthew, another one. It feels like an Air Force show. Did you have any experience working with SOST? That's the Special Operations Surgical Team. Yes, I do. We actually, if you go over to One's Ready, we talked to 3, I think we have like 3 or 4 SOST episodes now between enlisted and officers. One of my best officers, she texted me today, as a matter of fact. One of my favorite officers of all time was our first SOST guest. Her name's Reagan Lyon. Reagan basically took SOST out of the shadows and put them at the forefront of the surgical teams. Those folks are awesome. I don't have enough good words to say about it. She deployed with us and was our surgeon, like was our trauma doc that we deploy with, because pararescue teams always deploy with a doctor. That's how you do your medicine. It's kind of a creepy thing, but you have to operate under the licensure of a doctor. And if that doctor is there with you, then they can be like, hey, you're allowed to do this. You can't do this. You have to call me if you want to do this, or if you want to give this medicine or whatever. They're your on-call doc. So she was with us and then ended up moving on to SOST afterwards, or SOST, whichever one you want to call it. But she was absolutely amazing. I can't say enough good things out of those teams. Down at Birmingham, Alabama, that's the home for all Air Force medicine now. Chris Wilson, another guest on the One's Ready podcast, is actually one of the head shed dudes down there. Awesome dude. One of my troops back in the day over at One Troop in Vegas. One Troop for life. That's I had that plaque sitting down here right now, but Chris is one of the guys there. But the SOST actually works there too, because Birmingham, Alabama, it's the biggest trauma center in like the tri-state area, and it's one of the busiest trauma centers in the United States of America. So those folks are amazing. They're great. I actually just ran into one of them over here at the gym. Some guy walked up to me, had a PJ shirt on, no big deal, just putting the flag out, putting the vibe out. Somebody came over, was like, "Hey, were you a rescue guy?" I was like, "Oh yeah, totally. Worked here in Vegas, and just retired." Turned out to be a SOST guy. We knew a bunch of the same people. He knew a PJ that went the anesthetist route, and so they had crossed paths a bunch of times. He's like, "Hey, do you know this guy?" And I was like, "Absolutely." Took a selfie, sent it to our boy Ed, and said, "What's up?" But yeah, can't say good enough things about SOST. Those guys are absolutely fantastic. Hey, if you guys haven't already hit the thumbs up button, please hit the thumbs up button for me. Share the show with everybody. We're trying to get this bad boy out there and talk about everything you want to talk about. Throw those questions in the chat. We'll go ahead and talk about whatever it is that you guys want to talk about tonight. I'm here for it, because I came in here with no plan and no prep. And I just wanted to talk to y'all, because we got the smartest chat in the game. And that's all of you. That's no credit to us. It's all credit to you. I don't know if you guys are tracking, but right now, Cory Booker is currently on the House floor. He actually ended his little speech. He spent 24 hours standing up and talking to people about what, you ask? Warning against Trump. NPR, we'll talk about their little kerfluffle here in a second too, but Cory Booker basically did a 24-hour mark. Senator Cory Booker devoted all of Monday night and into Tuesday evening on the Senate floor, delivering an impassioned speech in protest of the Trump administration's policies. This is just crying for 24 hours, and people are talking about him like he's some sort of hero. Booker wiped away tears and placed his hand over his heart as fellow Democrats, including House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, cheered. I could not care less. These are the people. This guy, by the way, the fun thing to call this guy is Angry Eyes Mr. Potato Head, because he's always got these angry eyes that you're looking at right there. It's fantastic. I love it. Hilarious face on Cory Booker. I just absolutely hate him. He's not as bad as Timu Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, but crazy eyes, Cory Booker. These are the same people that want women in sports to have to play against men. They're the same people that called, this just passed, but March 30th, if you remember, a couple of years ago, was actually Easter. And they renamed it Trans Day of Visibility. And maybe it wasn't March 30th, then further in April, maybe. But Trans Day of Visibility. And then Joe Biden took a selfie on the White House lawn with some dude that had fake boobs and exposed himself on the White House lawn while trans flags were hung on the White House. That's who these people are. So when you see these things, and when you see the spin, especially from somewhere as biased as NPR, regardless of what their CEO would like to have you believe about their bias, which is very real and very objectively apparent, this is all just gaslighting. It's all stupid. DC is Hollywood for ugly people. That's what it is. Let's say, Gabe, how does the 18 Delta and pararescue pipeline differ as far as medicine and scope of practice? Okay, so here's what I'll say with a disclaimer. I haven't gone through the 18D. I was not for a long time. Pararescuemen used to go through the same course. They called it the SOCM long course. They used to go through the long course with the 18 Delta bros down at Fort Bragg. We split for a number of different reasons. Part of it was the paramedic accreditation. We wanted to have every pararescueman accredited for the National Register. And they just stopped doing that. So we ended up splitting. We got our own schoolhouse, whatever. It's history, and it is what it is. So here's what I'll say. So 18 Deltas are way better at certain aspects of medicine, especially like indigenous medicine, veterinary medicine, clinical medicine, stuff that they're doing in the field. Because again, the 18 Delta is there to be a medic for his team, but more so they're there to provide the medical capability for their primary mission set, which is foreign internal defense. Green Berets, oppresso de libere, right? Free the oppressed. Those dudes are there to organize a G chief, a guerrilla force, train them, equip them, and get them ready to overthrow governments. That's what Green Berets do. What's up, Chaotic? Good seeing you. Thanks for showing up. So that's what they do, right? And then their medical capabilities are geared towards that. Ours on the pararescue side of the house, we gear towards different things. We have some of the same qualifications. A lot of the 18 Deltas get their paramedic certification. I believe that they're back to accrediting down at Fort Bragg. I'd have to ask somebody that's smarter than me, especially one of those Army dudes, to ask them if they're back to accrediting people for nationally registered paramedics. So that might be the same thing. There's another qualification called Advanced Tactical Practitioner. This is an additional test. It's really hard to get. It's a formalized military test. They used to make us take it as well. Basically, there's a rule inside of SOCOM that says if you're with a maneuver element, then you have to have your ATP card, right? Now, this is a squishy rule because sometimes people will be like, listen, you're a PJ, you may not have gotten the card, because for a long time at the schoolhouse, it was like an optional test. So usually the only reason you'd require the ATP card is if you're going to an STS and you were going to be supporting SOCOM teams, because that was a SOCOM rule. If you didn't have it when you showed up to the unit, you would just get it. You would study for it, and then you would take you go and get the test proctored, and you take it and you get your card, no big deal. But when you took it at the schoolhouse, they would oftentimes give it to you as you were kind of like graduating the course. And they'd be like, hey, if you get it here, great. If you don't, you can get it at your next unit if you're going to an ST unit, and that's it. So the 18 Delta pipeline and the pararescue pipeline, in timing, they're roughly the same. The SOCM course is a little bit longer. I want to say that's 9 months as opposed to our 7 months total. But it's because they add that 2 months of clinical medicine. Everything else from a trauma standpoint, trauma is easy. Like I'll tell you straight up, any monkey can do military trauma medicine. Stop the bleeding, get them breathing, make them leaving. That's it. That's what trauma medicine is. You stop the bleed, you get them breathing so that they can actually support themselves, and then you get them off the X and you get them to the people that can really help, which is bright lights and cold steel, people like SOST, people like the Joint Medical Augmentation Unit, people that can do battlefield surgery. That's how you actually get those people to stop dying. So as far as the pipelines go, their medical, watching them do trauma medicine, you probably wouldn't, if I didn't tell you who was a Green Beret or who was a PJ, you probably wouldn't be able to tell, because they're really, really good at that craft. Where the difference would be like pararescue focuses specifically on mass casualties. So we do mass casualty to the 10th degree, even as students. So when you're going through the pipeline, because if you think about it, it makes sense, right? In the Air Force, we have planes that can fly with as many as 30 crew members on it. If that plane goes down and they're in a place where no one else can get them and they send us in, you've got like a 4-man, 6-man team that's handling 30 patients. That's crazy, right? So we focus a lot. Like pararescue hangs their hat on mass casualty incidents and being able to manage mass casualty incidents with a very small team. So in that specific aspect, I would probably say the PJs are better than Green Berets at that. Not to say that Green Berets haven't done great in mass casualties. I have friends that have done them. They're awesome dudes. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that there's different focuses, because again, they're different jobs with different skill sets, different missions, and different capabilities, right? My job as a pararescueman is not to go and train an indigenous force to be able to protect themselves and then overthrow a government. That's what Green Berets do. Green Berets don't train all day to aircraft crashes or crashes on the side of a mountain, or, isolated personnel that you have to dive to go recover for dive missions or any stuff like that, right? So in that sense, pararescuemen are probably better at that specific skill set or at that specific discipline. So they're comparative. They train all the way up to the same standard. We have a lot of the same standards as far as some of our certifications and qualifications go. So that one is same, but different. From Eldon, speaking of DC, do you think we'll ever get a GWAT Memorial? If I remember correctly, they said there wouldn't be another memorial made. Kind of sad when you look at the 20 years we spent here. Boy, do I have some good news for you. 100% we have a GWAT Memorial coming up. My friend Carrie Kite, I want you guys to go over. I'm gonna pull up Veteran Made, and I want you guys to follow him as well. And I will search through that here right now. I just got to figure out how to do it. Yep, here we go. Veteran Made is currently doing a very big project. So my friend Carrie Kite from Veteran Made, and I'm going to pull up and share the screen here so you can see who you're supposed to follow and go say hi. So this is Carrie Kite. Carrie went through selection with me way back in the day, way back when it was, when it was INDOC. Unfortunately, Carrie didn't make it. He's an Ohio guy. We've maintained contact for 20 years. I love Carrie. The last time that he was in Vegas, he came up to the house. We talked about it. Carrie right now is currently, and I don't think he has it on here. Yep, here it is. We're going to play this little video right here. This video right here where they're talking about the Old Glory Ultra Marathon. Basically what they're doing is they're doing a cross-country marathon, and their goal is to break the cross-country team marathon record. At the end of that, to get to your question, you may be thinking to yourself, Aaron, Why are you telling me about this awesome film project where they're going to follow a team of ultra marathon runners where they run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in hopes to beat the cross country national relay record? Well, the reason that they're doing it is the flag that they're carrying this entire time is going to be delivered during the open ceremony of the GWAT Memorial in DC. So there is a GWAT Memorial. It is opening. I believe it's in September. I think it might even be on September 11th that this thing is going to open in DC. The GWAT Memorial is going ahead as planned. They're going to run that flag all the way in there and deliver it while the ceremony is going on. They've trained it all the way up to that point. They're in the initial stages of getting the film together and getting funding and all that other stuff. But to answer your question directly, yes, there's a GWAT Memorial coming. And yes, it's going to be in DC. And I believe it opens in September. So there you go. Let's go. M. Corbin, is Pararescue able to integrate stuff like whole blood for stabilization? Fun fact, Pararescuemen were the first combatants that carried blood onto the battlefield. So this was seen, Jason Cunningham famously in Takur Gar pushed and pushed and pushed for buddy transfusion kits and whole blood administration. Pararescuemen have carried blood for a very, very long time. I mean, this was when I was graduating. We go through an extensive training block only on administering fresh whole blood, both fresh whole blood and then combined blood, like recombinant therapy. So that's where you basically spin out all the parts, white blood cells, red blood cells, plasma, and then you freeze them separately. And then you can reconstitute those things in order to give it to a patient. So we fly with fresh whole blood, like frozen blood that we get from a blood bank to go out on missions. And we do recombinant therapy where we have the pieces and parts that we can give to people for hemodynamic instability, meaning you don't have enough blood in your tank. So we're going to give you some more blood in your tank. So yes, Pararescuemen train and do whole blood stuff for stabilization. I actually went to the whole blood symposium. It was in Bergen, Norway back in 2010. And Pararescue was on the front lines of that thing. Like we were talking about, we had plenty of case studies, a bunch of interesting studies and stuff that we had been a part of. But famously in Takur Gar, Jason Cunningham was a Pararescueman that was killed during the Roberts Ridge scenario. If you want to read a great book, Not a Good Day to Die is a good look at Operation Anaconda, which was the entire thing, the Roberts Ridge scenario. It was written by Sean Naylor. Some of the book was hard to read, especially in the light of what we know now about John Chapman, the way that they frame John Chapman and the SEALs and stuff. You read it now and you're just like, woof, like you couldn't have seen into the future, but boy, did you guys get that one wrong. But other than that, it's a great look at things like command and control. It's a great look at how bad SEAL Team 6 was during that event. And I am here to call balls and strikes. You guys know me. I don't have any hate for my SEAL brothers, especially the tier 1 units. But those guys, specifically a guy named Bill Hyder, was one of the reasons that whole event went down. Those helicopters should have never landed on top of that mountain. Bill Hyder made that call. Those guys were not there for long enough. They had not done the study of the AFO teams and the way the AFO teams did when they got in there from the Army. Pete Blaber was there. Pete Blaber wrote a great book for his action. I think The Mission, The Men and Me is Pete Blaber's book. So to answer your question, yes, Pararescuemen do train in whole blood administration and carry it, and it's part of our constant training. It's one of those reasons why we bring a doc. So when you get in a country, one of the very first things that the doc does is sits down and like, okay, let's go over the blood glass. Here's how you actually set up the tubing that you're going to need for the blood. Here's all the pieces and parts you're going to need for it. Here's how you manage reactions. Here's how you know if it's working, all that other stuff. So short answer, yes, we 100% totally do. They are everything, effectively turning the planet into Earth stand. I don't even know Vladimir Putin, I hope that's actually Vladimir Putin. I think Putin's probably a big fan of the show. I don't know what you're referring to. Love the comment. Seems super based. There you go. Pete's got a ton of great interviews. Yes, he does. Pete Blaber is a madman and very, very experienced. So there you go. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. I'd really appreciate it. Hit a thumbs up in the chat. We got almost 50 people here. I know it's not a whole lot, but it's 50 people that I care about. It's 50 people that I want to be hanging out with on a Taco Tuesday night, just talking about culture here in America and talking about all these things. How's everybody feeling about Pam Bondi? I'm not real high on Pam Bondi right now. I don't have, I like what she's doing with MS-13. I like what she's doing with the domestic terror attacks that are going on with Tesla and the left. I don't mind those things. She promised a lot more. She's done. I saw a metric on Pam Bondi. She's got like 0 arrests, 0 investigations, and 42 Fox News appearances talking tough. Pam, you're not doing it for me. I hope you get better. From Gabe, do Army folk ever look at your beret and think you're just an airborne guy? Fun story. So I had just, I was lucky enough to jump in the 65th anniversary at Normandy. So the 65th anniversary of the Normandy jump, every year they do a big jump, right? There's a huge mass tactical. And what that means is like mass tactical in the Army for static line means you're stacking planes at different altitudes, 750, 1,000, 1,250, 1,500. And you're basically flying in and you're dropping off 2 doors. So 20 jumpers per door, 4 aircraft. So if you're going 40 jumpers per aircraft, 4 aircraft, that's 160 jumpers in the air at a single time under round chutes, right? I got to jump on an Iron Mike DZ. We jumped in old chutes. It was fantastic. So we run. There's this big military parade. We run down the streets of St. Mary Glee. We run to the city square. It is awesome. It's the most American I've ever felt in my life. If you want to feel like an American, get yourself over to Normandy, France around the 4th, around July 4th, because they celebrate independence. They celebrate, those jumps into Normandy. Get there during one of those times. Absolutely ridiculous. If you guys want to read a great history book, I'm blanking on the author's name right now, but it's Operation Overlord is the name of the book. I can even see the color. It's got a yellow cover. Fantastic look at everything, the planning that went in there, the false inserts that we did. We actually flew entire gliders full of dead people in order to crash them and, no kidding, have them found to provide a military feint, like basically to trick the enemy. We had balloons that were blown up. We had fake plans that we seriously put out to the enemy for them to get. It was crazy. But there I was, and I'm sitting there, and I mean, we're in our berets, we're looking good. This is the time of ABUs. ABUs are the dumbest uniform of all time. I've got it somewhere. It's off. It was like this gray and blue tiger stripe thing, and we didn't even wear them for that long. We just went over to OCPs pretty quickly. So it was like a 2-year period. We were wearing these things called ACUs or ABUs, Airman Battle Uniforms, which is hilarious in and of itself. But I'm standing there in this weird looking uniform, and I got this hat on, and a guy literally starts dressing me down. He comes up to me and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And like literally, I mean, this guy, like a master sergeant level, like I can't remember exactly what it was because I'd been drinking, because it was St. Mary Glee, France, and it was gorgeous out. And I just jumped into Iron Mike DZ for the 65th anniversary of Normandy. But this guy starts yelling at me and like 2 or 3 of the friends. He's like, "I don't know who are you guys with? 82nd, whatever." And he looks at my chest and he goes, "What the fuck are you?" Because he sees the Air Force tag, and then he sees like I'm dive and Halo and static line qualified and like all these badges on my uniform. He's like, "What the fuck are you guys?" And we're like, "We're PJs, man. We're in the Air Force." And he didn't even like apologize. He was just like, "Fucking Air Force guys," and then walked away. So yeah, you know what? I have been mistaken for a regular airborne guy. And by the way, those are not just regular airborne guys. Those guys are awesome. I got nothing but good things to say about the Army infantry. Let's go some of these questions. Too many interviews, not enough Epstein arrests. This is the big one for me. So guys, the Epstein case, it's not just about knowing who is in the black book. It's not just the salacious details of what politicians are involved and what, high name, high recognized celebrities are involved. It's the fact that people were raping children. Okay. I don't care what celebrities were on the list. If the celebrities on the list hurt a kid, I want them punished. And there is no punishment that's enough for me for these people. That's what people forget about this whole thing. Like Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison right now for conducting a child sex trafficking ring, and not a single person that actually did the harm to the children is in jail with her. That's disgusting. That's what we want. I don't want to know who's on the list just so I can be like, "Ha ha, I knew Diddy and Obama and Bush and Clinton were all on the list. Ha ha ha." That's not what I want. I don't want to dunk on these people. I want to murder these people that hurt kids. I want them held to justice. I want them held to account. I want them shamed. I want their life to be ruined. I want their life to be over. That's what I want from the Epstein list. So when Pam Bondi talks a big game about how we're releasing these things right away, and the influence remove was just absolutely retarded. I don't know why they would think to roll the information out in the way that they did. It was absolutely terrible. It was just absolutely disgusting. And I hated it. And for that, Pam Bondi, you got a working up to do. Matthew, got another one. Do you know if security forces Dagger teams participate with AFSPEC war? So yes and no. So Dagger is in AFSOC. They're a specific team. So Dagger is deployed aircraft ground resource element. I think that might be it. Might be resource element. So basically what Dagger is it's teams of specially trained Air Force cops. There's no specific selection process for it. You're basically vetted into the program. They have a short kind of like check, short physical check, a short, tactical check. They check your records and make sure that you're good. And you can basically go work as an additional duty for these teams, right? I've worked with Daggers. I have good friends actually that are in the Dagger program and that I love. So shout out to Chase. What's up, Chase? Love you guys. Go the Warrior Monk podcast is another good one too. It's a former Dagger dude. Warrior Monk does good work. Go check him out on Instagram. So we do work with the Dagger element, but they're there for a very specific purpose, and that's to protect high value assets, right? So if a plane has, say, a nuke on it, that's going to get a specific team that's there for the security. So yeah, we work with them and we've seen it. Like we talk to them, like if you're an Air Force guy and you're deployed and somebody comes over your tent, like, hey, what's up? I'm an Air Force guy too. You're like, hey, come on in. What's going on? And they're like, oh, I'm a Dagger guy. I'm like, oh, cool. What's up? What do you guys do? Because a lot of stuff for like, where I've worked with Dagger the most is when we have a base defense plan, right? I was on a very small base in Africa, one that was actually ran over. So it was CSL, Consolidated Support Location, Manda Bay. It was in Kenya, right? Manda Bay was actually overrun. And actually ST guys are the ones that stopped that attack and that actually killed the guys that were there. So shout out to the ST bros that went over and fixed that problem. But that was, maybe 2 years, maybe a year before I deployed there. So it was really fresh in everybody's mind. There was a Dagger team that was there and we integrated with them to be like, hey, here's our sector, here's our weaponry, here's what we're going to be doing, here's what we expect you guys to do. If we need to go mobile and load up, we're going to be looking for you guys. If we have a mass casualty, we're going to need hands. So I'm going to need you guys to do this. So I worked with them way more in that capacity than their actual deployed capability capacity, right? Lots more in training, not so much on the deployed side, but yes, they're out there. Yes, we know them. Yes, we work with them. Has anybody looked into Epstein's foreign currency manipulation yet? Another good question about Jeffrey Epstein. How did he get his money? Can anybody tell me? Like, how Elon got his money, right? Like Elon made PayPal with Peter Thiel and a couple others, and then they sold it and he made a couple billion off that. And then he leveraged that into his next move. And then he got SpaceX and XAI and all these other things. And he's large in that space now. And he's doing good work with Doge. So we all know how Elon got his money. How did Jeffrey Epstein get his money? Here's another interesting question. There was a brownstone, like one of those really nice townhouses, I believe in Washington, D.C., that was gifted to Jeffrey Epstein for like $1. It's a $10 million house by Les Wexner. Les Wexner is a famous Ohio guy. He actually lives in Columbus, but Les Wexner owns like Abercrombie and Fitch, Victoria's Secret, Aeropostale, American Eagle. He owns a bunch of those huge chain stores. Why would Les Wexner give Jeffrey Epstein a $10 million house for a song? Why would he do that? If Jeff Epstein had all this money, it's an interesting question to consider. But as far as the currency manipulation, nope, wouldn't know. Let's go. Young Padawan, shout out. I Came With Fire podcast as a former security forces guy and a Green Beret, homie. I know they're good friends of mine. I've been on there. You should go check our episode out. We did a great episode over on Rumble with I Came With Fire. We looked at the Vegas shooting. The Vegas shooting was the largest, the Route 91 Music Festival shooting, 2017. Stephen Paddock. For some unknown reason, this 55-year-old dude somehow got 500 pounds worth of equipment, 35 rifles, a couple thousand rounds of ammunition, supposedly with bump stocks, up to the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino and opened fire on the Route 91 music festival, the concert that was going on at the time. I want to say like 61 people killed and 800 people injured. It is crazy. We did a deep dive on that entire thing. So the security forces guy you're talking about, that's Brandon over there. He was awesome. I actually asked him to come on the show tonight. Crazy story. But he already had dinner plans with the wife. So I was like, okay, man, next time. But I'm going to get Brandon on here pretty soon because he's an awesome dude. And then Chris is the Green Beret guy. Chris is at the end of his career. He's starting to transition his way out. I Came With Fire is great. Go follow him on Rumble. They're close friends. They're great dudes. Can't say good enough things about the I Came With Fire dudes. Stargazing Lonnie. What up, Aaron? I'm a 20-year-old who's going to the Army as an 11 X-ray, just waiting until my piss is clean right now before me and my recruiter's schedule. My physical portion of MEPS did the ASVAB. Fantastic. I don't know where you live, but don't smoke weed. You will not get into the Air Force or the Army if you piss hot on a test. You're just not going to do it. So I'm glad, happy. Don't do that. That's good. What's the Rumble? The Rumble, they're over on let me find it for you. So they're on Dear America. They just got picked up by Dear America, which is like a larger conglomerate. Let's go Dear America on Rumble. Sorry, guys, I'm just finding this one. Here we go. So if you go over to Dear America, you'll be able to find I Came with Fire. And I will pull it up and screen share it for you right now. Bang. Here you go. I Came with Fire podcast. It's I_came_with_fire_podcast over on Rumble. Check it out. They've got all kinds of great stuff in here. I'd have to scroll down a long time to get to mine, but I've been on with them a couple times. I think third or fourth time. I was just on with them in February for Valentine's Day because my last name's Love and it's good branding. But those guys are awesome. Go check them out on Rumble. Make sure to follow everything they're doing. They're super awesome. They're really, really good. Brandon from Vegas Stronger. I'm in that program and he helped me with housing assistance. I don't believe so. Chaotic. I do not think that is the same Brandon. However, it could be. The guy's got his fingers in a bunch of little pots. So, but I doubt it. I have not heard about that at all. Just looking through these here. Good input from Gabe Moser here. So Stargazing Lonnie, choose your infantry contact. Don't go as 11X. Well, you got time, big guy, because you got to wait until you can actually pass the drug test to get in. So maybe something to talk to your recruiter about. Man, shout out to Athletic non-alcoholic beer. Just a little personal note, because I like sharing things, especially for, accountability purposes. I don't drink anymore, everybody. I think like one of the first days that I decided to quit drinking was the day that we were recorded with the Warroom. Have not had a drink. I had one glass of wine with my wife. We went to a very nice steakhouse here in Las Vegas. I had a single glass of wine. It was a great Malbec. It was an expensive steakhouse. It was a date night. It was good. Didn't even finish it. I'm on the back end of it now. So I guess I don't drink anymore. So there you go. I'm not saying you don't have to, but I'm saying it completely changed my life. And I look back at all that time that I spent that I was either too drunk to remember things or hungover in the morning. And I think about all the time I wasted. And then I started thinking about how time is fleeting and finite. And then I started thinking about how many times I've wasted and how many conversations or how many bad outputs I've had from drinking over the entire, period that I drank. That's my son. You can hear him in the background. My son is a regular guest on this podcast. Every single time I record, I have hope in my heart that he's going to have a good hour when I'm here. He rarely does. It's okay. He's a good kid. But yeah, it just changed. It changed me, who I am. My fitness is better. I wake up in the morning. I feel crispy. Every morning I wake up, and this is a weird thing about my little not drinking journey, right? Every single morning I wake up and I'm not tired. I'm not hungover. I don't feel nauseous. I don't feel like crap. It doesn't take me an hour's worth of a workout to actually get to a place where I feel normal again. Holy crap. What was I doing for 30 years of my life? What was I doing? It was absolutely insane. I had the opportunity. I was invited to go on the Present Dad podcast. I'll make sure to get that out on my social media. So go, if you're not following me, could you go over to Aaron_loves_America? That'd be great. Talk about political stuff all the time and some other stuff. But I had the opportunity to go on there and talk to them just about being a dad and some of these things. And they asked me a great question. George Hayward, Hayward is one of the guys on there. Brandon was one of the other hosts. And they asked me a great question. It was like, what do you tell your son? I've got a 17-year-old son. And they were like, what kind of conversations are you having with them? And I have a great quote from my good friend. He's a pararescueman right now. He's actually deployed, but pararescueman's name's Chris Thomas. Chris Thomas runs Guardian Grit. One's ready, Guardian Grit, Taylor Starch. We've been doing in-person training events. They're awesome. The next one's coming up in San Diego. We're about to release the dates and how to sign up. So if you're trying to get to one of those, let me know. We'll get you there. Chris had a great quote, and it was, smart men learn from their mistakes. A genius learns from others' mistakes. And I try to, without being overbearing with my son, I try to tell him about all that time that I wasted and all those times that I do not remember the good times that I had with the team. And I remember bad conversations I've had with people because I was drinking. I remember not managing my relationship with alcohol appropriately, and I'm drinking like 5 nights a week. Like that was the type, like I am not the type of dude that can sit down and just have one beer. That's not how I am. It's either I'm getting blackout or I'm not drinking. And I look back at, 25 years of my life and I go, hey son, if there was one thing I could tell you is just never drink. manage that relationship with alcohol, because it really will ruin you. It's literal poison. And again, this is my own personal choice. If you go out and you have a couple beers or you get drunk and that's how you have fun and that's how you relax and you manage your relationship with alcohol appropriately, more power to you. Don't drive, be a good dude. Don't do anything that you wouldn't do if you were sober. But if that's your choice, I got no judgments for you, man. I lived that life. I was there. But for me, I just had to step away completely. And it's honestly been probably one of the best things that I've ever done in my life. So that's that. Moving through here. Matthew, a lot of questions, and I love it. Have you done any work with Air Force Red Horse Squadrons? I think that they're like Navy CBs, but for airfields, yes, they were, but they don't exist anymore. So I had a really good friend, the best man at my wedding. He was a Red Horse guy that actually crossed over to be a PJ. We live 8 minutes away now. I've got the code to his house. He's got the code to mine. He's my son's godfather. Him and his wife are my son's godparents. Closest friend in the world. The Red Horse dudes were awesome, and that is exactly what they were. So if you can imagine a CE force, like a civil engineering force that can forward deploy and take a field and turn it into a landing strip, those were those dudes. They were awesome when they were there, but they're not there anymore. So there you go. Let's go with these questions here. Super. I love this comment. My son says the same. Other jobs teach you how to mop without needing to do stupid shit. Hilarious. That's one of the funniest things about, everybody thinks that, pararescue is so cool and combat control is so cool and all this other stuff. The amount of cleaning that I did as a pararescueman? Combat control teams, we used to joke that it was the combat cleaning team. The best thing that we are is taking a dirty room and turning it into a clean room anywhere. We're notorious for just taking over. Like literally at the 321st in England, they moved us to a hangar that was condemned. So we moved that unit 3 times during my short stay there. I was there for like 3.5 years with Peaches, with the other guy on the One's Ready podcast, CCT guy. He and I were there at the same time. That's actually where we met. We moved that unit 3 separate times. I had got there. They had just completed a move. I was still helping move stuff into the old condemned hangar that, no kidding, had asbestos in it. That's why nobody had been using it. But we're like, we'll take it over. We polished that turd to a high shine. We made it our own. And as soon as we got comfortable, we're like, you guys got to move again. And then we were sharing a hangar with the CV-22s. So we had this great gym. Like there was a huge hangar. And then in the middle of the hangar where you park the aircraft and do maintenance on the aircraft, we'd taken over that whole floor. We had made a gym. We put our cages there, whatever. And like a year and a half into living in that hangar, they came to us and they're like, hey guys, bad news. You're going to have to clear off like all the stuff on the floor. And then you're going to have to give up all the office space on the north side of the building, because that's where the CV-22s are going to be, because we're going to put them in here with you. Absolutely terrible. Just absolutely terrible every single time. It is what it is. But you would be shocked at how much you're going to clean as a junior enlisted person in the military in general. So there you go. Not seeing any more questions here in the chat. Go ahead and throw them in there. If you guys haven't already, hit the thumbs up button. I know I keep asking. I should probably just pin the comment, but I got to be honest with you. It's important. It helps us get views. It helps us get some looks. Dumbest politician of the week, we're going to get into here in a second, because it's my favorite absolute segment that we do on the show. I was going to give it to Cory Booker, but one of our frequent flyers has just popped up again, and I just can't stand this woman. She's absolutely terrible. Let me get the news story that I'm thinking of here. I'm pulling it up here as we get it, and I will share it here in a second. So Jasmine Crockett is an absolute idiot. This chick is the absolute worst. She grew up in a private school. It was like $30,000 a year to go to this private school. She completely code switched once she got in, and now the only way that I can describe her actions in the youthful colloquialism that I can profess to you is that she's just ratchet. She just does like ghetto shit all the time. And I know that sounds like me being racist or whatever, but it's the only way for me to accurately describe it, to get your mind to get in here. So Jasmine Crockett has been facing a ton of backlash recently for a bunch of comments that she's made. It's a rolling controversy. It's a great headline. Far left end, Jasmine Crockett faces week of backlash and unhinged comments. Main controversy came when Crockett appeared to mock wheelchair-bound Texas Republican Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott's in a wheelchair. She was speaking in Texas because she is a Houston congresswoman. She called, this is on the far right here, that is Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott was actually jogging and a tree fell on him and he's paralyzed from the waist down. She called him Governor Hot Wheels, which was absolutely hilarious. It's Ted Cruz, she went on. I mean, like, this dude has to be knocked over the head like hard, right? There's no niceties with him, like, at all. Like, you go clean off on him. Those are a bunch of words that usually aren't ordered like that. Like, those letters usually don't follow in that order. But Jasmine Crockett, there's no basement for Jasmine Crockett. I just hate her. She's the dumbest politician of the week. I can't even believe that I have to talk about her here. So Young Padawan, what song does the One's Ready outro remind you of? And why is it The Promise by When in Rome? Well, that is licensed music, my friend. So it better not be close to that, because if not, we're going to be catching a whole lot of stuff. Chaotic and a rolling conversation here. Even outside the military, it has been extremely detrimental. I haven't served. It's just that bad for me. It probably was the main reason why I couldn't enlist. Sorry, Chaotic. You're a frequent flyer of the program. We love you. I hate to see that. What else you guys got? We got through it. We're sitting at about an hour. I like to keep these just about to an hour to give you guys up. We just passed 5,000 subscribers here on the channel. That's a big deal for us. We've organic, no bot followers. We have only followers that care about the show. We hope we're providing you value at every single time. And I'm hoping that you guys love coming back here every week. Supra, now you ain't wrong. She's pretending to fit in is what it is. I grew up in the projects and we have a name for those people. Type the whole name out. Don't do that. Don't do that, Super. You're going to get me canceled. And I'm here for it, quite honestly. I'm going to get a shirt that just says ist and phobe. And that way people can put whatever they want in front of that and it's true, right? I'm just going to get a t-shirt. We're going to make it. I'll find a way to make our merch guy do this. But I'm just going to put ist and phobe. And then you guys can all wear those shirts around. And then if anybody wants to call you any names, you can just be which is it? Is it an ist or is it a phobe? I'm going to tell you this is my IP, by the way. I realize that I'm live on the internet. And this is going to live forever. However, I would like to say I'm going to get a shirt that says anti-social media influencer, because I think that's great. Because number one, I'm anti-social. I don't consider myself an influencer in any way. That's the cringiest thing on the face of the planet. It's just gross. But I'm also very anti-social. I'm what you would call an introverted extrovert. So while I do seem gregarious and outgoing and I can work a room and I can be at parties and stuff, but I have a social battery and that thing drains really low. I was actually, do you guys know what an Irish goodbye is? Like when you just don't say goodbye to anybody, you just leave a party. I was notorious for that, especially when I was drinking, because of two reasons. Number one, there's a point in my head where I get intoxicated enough where I'm not quite completely lost with reality and I know I shouldn't be in public. And at that point, there's a little timer that goes off in my head. It's like, ding. And usually that's right about the time I'm hitting the Uber button. I'm not talking to anybody. My wife and I would laugh about it. We actually called it the PJ goodbye for a while, as opposed to an Irish goodbye, because I'm a PJ. I actually do have Irish heritage, but I'm an American. I don't say that I'm an Irish American. That's stupid because I'm an American. But we used to call it the PJ goodbye. I would just bounce out. But the other reason is because I have a social battery. And when I'm when I'm giving that energy to people, there's a very finite amount of energy that I have. I'll go on business meetings or I'll go on, business dinners or stuff like that. I had a really busy week with business, bunch of people in town, bunch of conversations. Don't worry, I'm very important. But all of those meetings, I would come home and my wife would look at me and be like, you need to recharge, huh? Your social batteries are drained. I'm like, yeah, I need to play with this puppy. I need to play with this baby and I need to get a good night's sleep, because that's just who I am as a person, because that's what it is. But there you go. That's the story of the PJ goodbye. I heard Fox talking about not knowing who is Tren de Aragua being sent to El Salvador. And I'm like, they have tattoos all over their faces. Yeah, they really do. They really do. Another great episode that, Nate and I just did, speaking of Tren de Aragua, there is a piece of crap in Colorado, Representative Jason Crow. This guy is the worst of the worst. If you guys haven't seen that video, please go check it out. Please go share it. Jason Crow is the absolute worst. I'm going to do everything within my power as the president of the Nevada chapter of Veterans for America First. I am going to do everything in my power, along with the other state representative from Colorado, which is Adam Dorito, another awesome dude. He's been a guest here on the show, and he's a great guy. We're going to do everything we can to get that guy out when it comes up to his term. He's got one more election coming up. It's in 2 years. John Fabricatori actually just lost to Jason Crow. Jason Crow has a terrible record. Voted against the Lake and Riley Act. Voted against Protecting Women in Sports Act. Voted against. He came out in a news story and said directly that Tren de Aragua not only wasn't a big deal, but they weren't taking anything over in Colorado. He basically called the apartment complexes that were taken over in Colorado. If you remember, that's what started this Tren de Aragua thing. It was right about the time where they were eating the dogs and eating the cats in Springfield, Ohio. And the whole immigration issue started to become really big during this last election cycle. Jason Crow came out and said that just wasn't happening. We have video of it, bro. This guy was an Army Ranger. He said that the worst time that he ever had, the most scared that he has ever been in his entire life, was during January 6th, where Rolling Stone has a picture of him cowering in a corner during January 6th. Then, as a Colorado state representative, he went back, and some of those dudes that got sent to secure the Capitol after January 6th, some of those dudes were from the Colorado National Guard. This guy stood on a table. I actually have I have a picture of it. I'll show it here. He actually stood on a table and gave like an Independence Day style like pump up speech to everybody that was here, that was talking about, or that was getting ready to go. Let's see if I can do that. I'll show you this little picture here. Let's figure out how to share this bad boy. This is how you do it here. So this is him giving this pump up speech. As you look here, I'll center it on the screen for you. This is him outside in a mask, standing on a picnic table, telling these men and women, and Adam Dorito was one of them. He was there. He had firsthand knowledge of this. And I talked to other people that had firsthand knowledge of this exact speech that told him the most scared that he's ever been was during the January 6th riots, during the January 6th protests. Absolute garbage human. He's got a terrible voting record. He is the antithesis of what we do at Veterans for America First. We try to get the right GWAT veterans in the right seat to lead because they've done it before, and we know that we can trust America with them. Jason Crow is the antithesis of that. He's exactly at the other end of the spectrum. If you haven't seen that video over on Valhalla VFT, go check it out. I don't have enough words to say about Jason Crow that are bad. He's terrible. And I can do it from a completely objective, just looking at the way that he votes. It's disgusting. He supported everything in Ukraine from the day one. He wants no end to that war. He wants the continued slaughter of Ukrainians and Russians. Do I care about a little regional conflict over somewhere in Europe? Not really. I don't want to fund it. But you know what I don't want? I don't want over 1 million casualties at this point. 40,000 dead. By some estimates, Ukrainians over 100,000 dead. It's probably way higher for Russians. It's just disgusting. And Jason Crow has supported all of it. And for that, we will not stand. And that's exactly why Nate and I went as hard as we did. So go check that video out. It's over on Valhalla VFT. Folks, that feels like a good one. I'm looking at the questions here. I don't see any questions that are popping up. Gabe, hey, thanks so much. Go hit that early run in the morning. Everybody, thanks for showing up. I love you. I love that you guys come here and support it. I think this was a record for us. We got up to the highest number that we had. I think we had like 60 viewers. We're going to get that number way up, baby. We're going to get that number way up. I'm going to keep you up to date on all the culture stuff. I'm going to get on the War Room as much as I possibly can. I'm always going to produce if I'm not on camera because I was an idiot and went and got a day job. So now the timing is a little bit off for me, but we didn't want to change the time for you guys again. We'd already changed days once. So that's the backstory there. But you'll see me on the War Room. Go follow me over at Aaron Loves America on Instagram, Aaron Loves America over on Twitter or X or whatever you call it, Twix. And then check out the One's Ready podcast. Keep your eyes peeled for that new One's Ready Guardian Grit Taylor Starch training event that's coming up soon. It's definitely going to be in San Diego. It's definitely going to be in June. When we get all the logistics knocked down, we'll get you some dates and how to sign up. If you guys want to be there, it'd be great to meet you. Keep your eye out for that War Room live meetup. That one's coming too. We'll let you know as soon as we possibly can. Make sure to tune in for the War Room this Friday, live at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time. And we will talk about everything that you care about, military stories. We'll put some mentorship in there. We'll see if Ben is dating J-Lo. I'm sure he is. Jake is going to say something wild. Nate's going to say something wild. Jay is going to try to bare knuckle and hold on with both hands to try to keep us on target. It's not going to work. Everybody, thanks for showing up. Love y'all. Have a great day. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you on Friday with the War Room live at 3 p.m. Pacific. We're out here.